And good evening to my beloved audience from beautiful Southeast Missouri. This is Dr. Abe back on the air again. And in the next couple of broadcasts, I'm going to talk about, as a communication scholar, my two main communication heroes of the act of communication. I think it'll make for an interesting couple of broadcasts as I dive into those. First of all, those of you who listen to me regularly know that I'm about to have a book, my first book, come out in November. And the book is about the communication of a man who was once called the most famous man in America, and certainly is the most famous man in the history of the denomination called the Church of the Nazarene. And that's a man by the name of Uncle Bud Robinson. And as you can see, here is a picture of Uncle Bud. There are a number of pictures of him that still survive in the Nazarene archives and other places. But this is probably the most common one that you see on his things that he wrote, like this, pamphlets and short books, and also on the album covers of a couple of his sermons that were put on vinyl record that I have as well. And Uncle Bud Robinson was a fascinating person. And there are three reasons that he's my communication hero. And I'll get into those here at the end of the broadcast. But first, I just want to give you a little bit of a background on who Uncle Bud Robinson actually was. First of all, if you go to my main YouTube page, you will see one of the videos I previously posted. You'll see there's a video that says the search for Uncle Bud Robinson's birthplace. And that's an interesting video to watch because in that video, another scholar and this scholar was familiar with the area of Tennessee where he was born. We are looking for, and we believe we found the exact spot on which Uncle Bud Robinson's boyhood home stood in the mountains of Tennessee. But he was born in the mountains of East Tennessee in 1860, the dawn of the Civil War, to a man named Emmanuel Robinson and his wife Martha. And Uncle Bud had a rather inauspicious beginning to life. He was, I believe, the eighth of 12 or 13 siblings. I have the exact number in my notes, but he had a rather inauspicious life, beginning to life, most notably because of the fact that he was born in the deepest Appalachian poverty you could imagine. And he describes it in his autobiography called Sunshine and Smiles. That if you really are looking for the quintessential biography of Uncle Bud, you should get a copy of Sunshine and Smiles. Um, and he describes it as literally a hell on earth. His father was a drunkard, a moonshiner, probably a bootlegger, and by all accounts, of what we would consider nowadays to be abusive. There were his father ran one of these country stores, a country, tavern type thing. So there were always people in and out. And the lowest of the low in terms of depths of poverty. And so his life started, he really started off um, behind the proverbial eight ball, if you will. And after his father died as a teenager, his mother moved the family to Texas, just outside of Waco. And that's where he got a job first as a ranch hand, farm hand, working just for various ranchers in the area. And it was there that he encountered a traveling circuit rider. Um, the name of that circuit rider is lost to history, but he encountered a circuit rider. And famously, after hearing the circuit rider's message, he went to the Pecos River, or the Brazos River, excuse me, and he threw his handgun and his deck of cards into the Brazos River and vowed at that point that he was going to follow God. And not only that, that he was going to be a preacher. Now, there were a couple problems with that. Number one, he had, from a very young age, spoken with a very pronounced stammer that was evident to all who came in contact with him. And the second thing is he was illiterate, completely illiterate. There was no schooling really available on the American frontier in those days, and certainly not in remote areas of Appalachia either. And so he had no opportunity for education, none whatsoever. So he couldn't read or write, and he spoke with a stammer. And later on in his life, he actually suffered from epileptic seizures as well. And so, again, he wants to become a preacher, but he doesn't exactly have the proper equipment. If if I can put it if I can put it like that. Um, and so he decides that since the circuit rider who converted him was a Methodist, that he would go to see the Methodist Church about getting what was called an exhorter's license at that time. We would consider it to be like a district license or ordination certificate nowadays. And so he goes and he meets with the ministers who make up the board that decides who to give exhorters licenses to. It was a sort of um, just thrown together process in those days. And he was soundly rejected for an exhorter's license. They said this young man can't read and write. He speaks with a stammer. How in the world is he going to convert people through his preaching? Until one member of the exhorters board spoke up and said, "Let's just license him anyway. It'll be good for his psyche. He'll probably never preach." And so, literally, um, the, they granted him the license thinking that he would never use it, um, but use it he did, and the rest is history. He persisted, became an itinerant evangelist, rubbed shoulders with some of the greatest itinerant evangelists of his time: Henry Clay Morrison, John Lake and Brasher, J.O. McClurkin, you name it. Uncle Bud Robinson preached alongside them. And when his career was over, he died in 1942 at the age of 82. He was responsible, credibly said to be responsible for between 100 and 200,000 decisions for Christ. He had traveled more than 2 million miles in itinerant evangelism, in an age in which traveling was difficult. And he had overcome all of these challenges that had plagued him one by one from his childhood. He persevered and overcame his stammer. That gave way to a very um, slight lisp in the latter part of his career. He overcame the epileptic seizures he suffered and also had a quite bizarre and unusual condition in which his shoulders would become randomly dislocated from his shoulder sockets, which caused him a lot of pain in traveling and preaching and inconvenience in traveling and preaching. But he overcame all of these things, and he also overcame his illiteracy. He learned at the age of, I believe it was 22, but in his early 20s, he learned to read and write in a Sunday school class. A compassionate Sunday school teacher took him under their wing and taught him to read and write. However, um, even though he wrote a weekly column in the Herald of Holiness and he published very widely, published many books, many pamphlets, some of which I have here, and I'll show you. I have my own Uncle Bud Robinson collection that I'm very proud of. But he always struggled with the rudiments of writing. The physical aspects of writing, so much so that when he would write something, he would dictate it. Almost always, he would dictate it to his wife, Sally, who was a school teacher, and then she would actually physically write it out. Um, so he found ways to overcome all of these challenges, and he's one of my communication heroes, one of my two main communication heroes for three reasons. Number one, he had an exceptional amount of grit, resilience, whatever you want to call it. He overcame his uh, uh, disabilities, or whatever you want to call them. He overcame them, and he figured out how to communicate effectively to make a maximum impact on the kingdom. I think resilience and grit are two very understudied aspects of communication. And and so that's in my book on Uncle Bud Robinson that is coming out in November. That's one area that I look at pretty closely in the book. The second reason that he's my communication hero is he was a great storyteller, and um, I think sometimes storytelling is sort of downplayed. I think a little bit in terms of communicating effectively. Maybe some people see it as possibly stagecraft or yarn spinning or whatever you want to call it. But the most effective communicators typically are the best storytellers, and Uncle Bud Robinson was a wonderful storyteller, as you will see if you read his pamphlets and books. And the third reason he is my one of my communication heroes is that he had a remarkable ability to coordinate meaning with his audiences. And that's no small feat because, of course, as an itinerant evangelist, you're traveling around, you're speaking to different audiences, every place you go. So it's not easy to develop meaning with your audiences. And Uncle Bud Robinson was a master at doing that, at coordinating meaning with the audiences that he encountered. That's one of the reasons he was, I believe, so effective. And that's another thing that I look at in the book. And as I promised I would show you, this gives you a little sense of just how colorful a character Uncle Bud Robinson was. One of his pamphlets, My Travels in the Holy Land, published not long before his death. Religion, philosophy, and fun, just full of short quotations and anecdotes. One of my favorites. Mountain Peaks of the Bible and a Pitcher of Cream. These are published in the same volume, but they were actually two separate works. Here published the same. This is a rare hardcover version of one of his works. Most of them were published in paperback, but Mountain Peaks of the Bible and a Pitcher of Cream. Does the Bible teach divine healing? Which is just a little pamphlet almost, and it's exactly about that subject, the subject of what the Bible says about divine healing. Chickens Come Home to Roost, a colorful title, um, and and talking about one of the themes is talking about how sin comes back to haunt us if we don't live a holy life. And then finally, his autobiography, Sunshine and Smiles, if you're looking to read about his background. I can also, if you contact me in the comments, if you're interested in learning more, I can put you in touch with more resources to learn about Uncle Bud Robinson. But the book that I'm releasing in November is the only that I know of scholarly analysis of Uncle Bud Robinson's communication. And it's quite interesting to me that such a prominent figure, not only in the history of the Church of the Nazarene, but in the history of evangelical Christianity, has not had his communication deeply probed before. And so it's an honor of my life to write the book. And in the description below the video, you'll see I will link to the publisher's website, advertising the page for my book. So if you're interested in learning more about it and ordering it when we get closer to the publication time, I would love for as many of you as possible to order the book when it comes out, because I think in reading that book you'll understand and appreciate why Uncle Bud Robinson is one of my communication heroes. Um, there's just so much more I could tell you and talk about, but I want to keep this video short so I don't preach a sermon. But tomorrow evening, I will broadcast about my second communication hero, and I'm not going to give away who it is. You'll have to tune in tomorrow to find out. Good night, and Dr. Abe signing off.